welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Turn the Page. I'm your host today, Jen, and today I am joined by the author of a very topical, very fascinating, very unputdownable thriller that feels like it's, less and less far away every day. It is an absolutely fascinating look at our society and class, the widening wealth gap, climate, all sorts of very interesting topics that are in everyday conversations today. So let's get right into it. Welcome. Could I ask you to introduce yourself and your book, please?
Yeah, hi, Jen. Thank you for having me here today. My name is James DeVita. I'm writing under the name James Cleary as the author of Sanctuary. That's another story. But yeah, so the book is called Sanctuary, and it takes place in the near future. It's in the United States, where there's been a terrible climate catastrophe we've suffered in the United States. In a nutshell, the central states and Midwest is experiencing another dust bowl, but 10 times worse than it. The coasts are flooding, as they say, the wet gets wetter and the dry gets drier, and it's kind of a cascade effect in the climate, which leads to food shortages and water shortages. Eventually leading to major civil unrest in the United States. Martial laws declared, and people are trying anything they can do just to survive. Now, within this, there's a character called John Brandt, who is a billionaire. He has actually prepared for this. Years ago, he started building an underground bunker out in Nebraska, somewhere, undisclosed location. And this is not your typical underground bunker. It is a luxury billion-dollar bunker. So if you can imagine kind of like a skyscraper underground, 18 floors, swimming pools, lounges, shooting galleries, hydroponics, beautiful suites, medical facilities. So he escapes there, John Brandt, the billionaire, with his family and kind of a skeleton crew of people, because you need a lot of people to run a place like that. But not everybody has made it. And I mention that because the facility is designed to support about 50 people for about 5 years autonomously. They would not need anything. And there's only about 18 people in there. So the point being, there's an overabundance of resources that this man has. And of course, he has a military team, and they're protecting it too. So, and this is his secret bunker. But when the world is burning, non-disclosure agreements don't really mean all that much. So the other part of the story is these group of outsiders who are actually the people that actually help build the bunker, that know about it and know its weaknesses. And they are outside trying to get into the bunker, which may sound a little Mad Maxy at first, but it's not. This is the Midwest and Central States. These are farming communities. I draw a lot of my inspiration from. These are small towns. These are husbands and wives and grandmothers and kids trying to survive out there, and they know about that this bunker. So they're trying to get in, and the people inside are trying to keep them out. And that's the basic conflict of the book, deals around that plot issue. And I would just add that not everybody in the bunker thinks that they should keep these people out. We have all different classes of different socioeconomic stratus inside there too. So not everybody is just say, no, leave them out there. So we have a lot of conflict inside the bunker also. And that's all very ripe for a lot of thematic issues to be dealt with in the story. That's my elevator speech. I know it's supposed to be really quick, but I've not found a good way to do it like in 30 seconds yet.
Well, that was very comprehensive and very interesting. It's really impressive to me how you are able to balance so many characters and perspectives on the situation. It gives it a very, at once intimate, but also sort of like wide, more epic scope. But before we get too much into the book itself, I'd love if you could tell us a little bit about your career, your journey as a writer, and perhaps some of your other creative works. And we also know that you are a Long Island local at one point. So yeah, talk about.
I'll always be a Long Island boy. I grew up born in Deer Park, up in North Babylon. I think I told you this, Jen. Worked as a fisherman and down in Captree Boat Basin for, I think it was 5 seasons altogether. Twice dropped out of Farmingdale College. I tried, but I couldn't do it, and finally found a Suffolk County Community College, which I'm a community college advocate. I think they change people's lives. They certainly changed my life. I met absolutely wonderful teachers that took me on like a project to get off the fishing boats, and I can't thank them a lot enough. And I moved just thinking about them. But my path to writing, I've done many things in my life. I'll say that. But I started off after I finally went to community college. I got involved in theater. And I've been an actor for almost 40 years now. I'm dating myself here. And irony of ironies, the job that has allowed me to write financially has been being an actor. And funnily enough, the theater day, the acting community, our theater day basically starts at noon. So I've been able to write early mornings up to about 11 o'clock for decades now. That has been my routine. And I didn't show anybody anything I wrote till I was 30 years old, but it was the first thing I wanted to be in sixth grade. I remember I said I wanted to be a journalist. And then I wrote all my life, kept journals. And when I was in theater, I wrote little playlets and soliloquies and monologues, but I never showed anybody until I was about 30. And then I started writing slowly in earnest. I started out, my first book is a middle grade fiction. Then I wrote a YA novel. Then I wrote a murder mystery, an adult murder mystery. So I was all over, not very smart business-wise. Like my audience was all over the place. But it was never paying the mortgage, to be honest with you. My theater work was paying the mortgage, and my passion was writing, and also have a passion for theater. And I've just been fortunate enough to been able to do this for a long, long time. And now Sanctuary, I'm very lucky because I wrote for 30 years without an agent. I tried to get an agent, but I've failed many, many times. And I also started early enough when you could still submit sometimes directly to publishers like HarperCollins at the time, those early books that I did, 2001, 2005. That's largely not so anymore. So much of it is on. It's just, I still do the traditional query letter, sample chapters, and all that. But I was very fortunate to find a wonderful agent who's more than agent. She worked like me, like a close editor for 2 years on this book, she and I together. I think of it as both of our books. And just so lucky, so pleased that we got that Penguin Random House picked it up.
That's so interesting. And I always love when writers write for various age levels and in different genres and such. And I always am interested when writers have a theater background, because I think they sort of, well, this is my question actually. Does a theater background give you any unique perspectives or strategies for writing? How do you think that background has influenced you as a writer?
Yeah, I think it's greatly influenced me. And so, first off, I'm not trained as a writer, but I've been fortunate to be literally inside of some of the greatest literature ever written. I've worked in classical theater for 30 years, not only Shakespeare and Shaw and Moliere, but also contemporary playwrights. So probably this is not brain surgery, but my dialogue and my character work is some of the stronger points of my writing. I know that authentic dialogue, nuance of character, complicated characters that and this is ABCs. But I always in theater, I come back to what's the ABC of it. I call it theater. What's going to happen next? And I know that's not very sexy or artistic sounding, but it's so important in theater. And to me, it's the exact same thing that's so important in writing. We want to keep you, the reader, saying, what's going to happen next? Oh, my gosh. And if we can do that, that's how we keep you engaged as the reader with the characters in the story. So we'll definitely plot and character. Dialogue and character, because plot was a needed thing. I needed work. And I love my agent. If she listens to it, she may get mad. But I remember when I first met her, she said, I know you can write. I don't know that you can plot. And I appreciate it. I so much appreciated that frankness. And I mean, I do a plot. Of course, I've got 3 other, but writing in this genre as far as a high concept thriller. So we worked on that together. She gave me wonderful notes as we progressed along. And so, yeah, it's been, I'm so thankful that I've had a life in theater. And I don't think I could have written this book, if I had not. And I'm also an extremely visual writer. So that's why it lends itself to a filmic kind of rendering of the book and for the reader too. I've heard that from my readers too. So But that certainly comes from my experience in theater and film.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that in addition to I had notes actually about dialogue and character and how that relates to a theater background, but I did also find that the more action heavy scenes were very easy to follow on the page, and I do wonder if that is because of that sort of like cinematic aspect that you were just talking about. I oftentimes like in a book if I am reading an action scene, I have trouble orienting myself in space sometimes or sort of visualizing where everybody is in relation to everybody else and the setting. And I found that really easy to keep a grasp on with your
Oh,
writing.
good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm very happy about that because they're tricky. They're difficult to write and to keep the action, to keep you going forward, and yet not to lose you, and not to give you too much detail, but enough detail. And so I'm really pleased that I could take you along on that. Because that is our job. It's our job in theater too. I always tell young actors, like, if you're not taking your reader or your audience with you, along with you, then you're not doing your job. It may feel really good to you, or it may look really good on the page, but are you taking the reader along for the ride, or the audience? And forgive me, I've been doing theater for so long. I mix metaphors and I use words that should be. So I'll try and stop apologizing for that, and I just do it. So.
Yeah. It's blocking. Yeah. In some
Yeah,
ways too. It's like being clear on the blocking of
yeah,
the scene.
absolutely, absolutely. I tend to call my main characters lead characters and things like that. So forgive me if I
Supporting
make
cast,
things up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so my next question is about character, in
Hmm.
particular John Brandt. I'm really curious about what into shaping his character in relation to what your storytelling goals were,
Hmm.
and perhaps his relationships with his family members, because the Brandt family is also very interesting.
Yes, yes, they are. Well, first off, Mr. Brandt is the billionaire in the book, and when I first said, it's easy to just make the billionaire the evil bad guy, and um, I don't think I'm giving away that he's not my favorite human in the world, but I did want to give him a point of view that he doesn't think that, and I've uh, I'm editing myself because I'm going to use a theater reference. I'm going to stop doing that. I played many, many villains because I've worked in Shakespeare a long time, played Iago and Edmund and Richard III. And my first thing is like, they don't think they're being evil people when they wake up. They have something they need, something they want. The world is either wrong to them somehow or, and Mr. Brandt, I want to make somebody that I didn't want you to write him off right away as the reader. Oh, here's an evil guy. Um, so I wanted to give him a background. I do have him. He's not from wealth from his parents. I put that in the book that I actually used on Long Island. He used to build clam boats when he was a kid. I worked on clam boats when I was a kid. So that's just for our Long Island readers. But I wanted him. He had worked himself off from building clam boats basically in his backyard, like we did down in Islip, to building this multi-billion-dollar shipping corporation. So I wanted to give him a background that was blue collar to begin with, at least. And I lead off with him caring about his family. And he says he has a scene, and I forget, won't say it exactly correctly, but he's talking, I'm not concerned about sending myself to Mars, or I don't want to, upload my mind into a computer or buy New Zealand. I want to protect my family here now. And I kind of led with that for him. And not that he can't be blinded by that. But again, as the writer, Mr. Brandt doesn't always know he's blinded by that. We can see that sometimes. He has a relationship with a 15-year-old younger wife who is finding herself in this world. And I really actually, she surprised me in the book. It's one that you hear writers some say that. I really was surprised by the arc that she took. I didn't see that at all in the beginning of the book. I kind of came to adore her after a while, what she was wrestling with in that world. And we've got a daughter of hers that starts out at 17 years old in the book, and daughter of a very privileged lifestyle. And then we have a 7-year-old boy, Jeremy, who's also. So not only the pressures of the world and what's happening in the world at the time, pressure sounds right because it's such privilege, but inside their worlds, everything is relative. They've got their own problems inside of that. I think my point being, I wanted to get them to be as realistic as I could, as authentic, whether you like them or not, or hate them. And at times I do hate Mr. Brandt. And um, so I basically wanted to render a complicated family. And if you come to hate him, I'd like you to come to do that, not hate him from the first page and say, "Oh, there's the billionaire bad guy." Does that make sense?
It
Because
does.
it's true.
He comes by it honestly,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and actually, he does as it came along. I eventually wanted to make him. I'm not giving anything away, I think, but make him actually nicer. I didn't want him, but he kept on doing things, and then as the world changed around me, I have to be honest. Like I often don't believe that people wake up thinking what can I do to harm another person. I don't believe that anymore. I think people do wake up and think that. From this is what I'm seeing in the world. And my daughter, who is she is a divinity major in the philosophy and divinity, not so much the ministry part, but she's very much smarter than I am. And she said something, and it was in the conversation about the book, something about a wolf should know itself a wolf. And that kind of halfway through the book, I started thinking of Mr. Brandt like that. And at least I'm not sure what the reader gets now. I will never know what a reader gets from it. But I started to see him differently. And I think he changes where his true colors come out as the book progresses. And some things that we don't see them because they're, and he doesn't really care about being politically correct. But there are still some things in a public persona we keep back, or even, dealing with the people that are inside the bunker. And I think as pressure mounts, we see what's underneath a little bit. A little bit that's happened in the world. I think like that too. Pressures happen. We start to see, oh, that's who you really are. So not to get too, go down that road, but he changed quite a bit for me from how I first envisioned him.
That's really interesting, especially I think, I think discourse about books lately has sort of leaned into whether a character is likable or not, which is certainly a lens that you can view characters through. But I think it's a lot more interesting to think about them as, what is this a person you can understand, like whether you agree with them or not, or empathize or sympathize with them or whatever. Like, does this read as a real person, and do you understand their motives, even if you think they're like atrocious, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I guess to continue talking about character a little bit, because there are quite a few characters, there's lots of perspectives in this. And as I was saying, it gives this book a feeling of intimacy, where you feel like you get to know a lot of different individuals and families and relationships and dynamics and what have you. But it's large, in fact, international in scope at times. So could you talk about balancing all of those different perspectives, characters, and if along the way, if there was a character you encountered that was either your favorite to write or the most challenging?
Well, those are good questions. Well, first of all, it was unwieldy for a very long time. I'll be honest with you. So, as Anne Lamott says, Anne Lamott's book, Bird by Bird. I have a literary crush on her, but as she was, it was very unwieldy for her. So there were a lot of drafts that were. I know she has. I can say probably there's her second chapter is shitty first drafts, or there's some of the. It's just because I was working with, my agent and I call it a large canvas. We wanted a very large bit wherein I can deal with all of these. Then inside of that, I can get small, detailed, nuanced relationships and characters. But we needed this kind of sweeping canvas within which to do that. And I had never written a book with this many characters in it, to be honest with you, and this many location changes too. And it's, again, how do we take the reader along and not lose you? So originally, like, the security team was, I think, twice as big as it was right now. There were more people outside and inside. And I had to, over time, just, whittle down until I said, how many people can I actually get away with that still makes this feel authentic? Because you need enough people to run that place, so, and you need enough security. And so it's a real challenge. It was an exciting challenge and frustrating at times, not always exciting. It's like, so that was a real going back and forth. And I credit my agent too, who we would talk back and forth, and the best notes of me are when you get lost. I don't need to know how to fix something. Just, I'm lost here. I don't know where we are. So, and that's not just location, that's within scenes too. Like, or not, you've lost me how this character went here. And so I guess my point being that I have a lot of good provoking questions, and I mean that in a positive way, that provokes my imagination. Um, and, I write very loose and a lot at first. And I've realized I've come to embrace that as my process. I just wrote something, say I didn't know I had a process. People would ask, and I didn't know, but because you're always, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, wrestling with how much does the reader need to know, because we don't want to give you too much, going to inundate you with world building facts or this. So how much do you need? Because it's so much, I think, more rewarding when you can fill in with your own imagination, but need to give you enough that you can do that. So there's no answer to this. I'm just saying this is part of the things that I struggle with. And then how much a good cut can really help sometimes. So I'm just kind of confirming with you that it was a challenge throughout and getting it back. Because I think there's about 18 or 19 people inside the bunker. There's about 20 people outside. And so there's a lot of people, and how to keep your supernumerary, the smaller characters in soft focus in the scene, but not lose them. So it's challenging, and I'm still working on a new book. I'm still working on that now. So it's not something you get, I don't think, unless you're brilliant. Well, that's what I was saying, Anne Lamott. Like, some people can just do this; they're brilliant, but we don't like to talk about that because most of us are normal, kind of everyday, writers working on this. And you had asked me about a character that surprised me, or
either your favorite to write or the most challenging, or.
Well, I don't want to talk about this one because that's right. But I do feel Maya is kind of the heart of the book for me. She's the one keeping the journal throughout the book, and I don't know. It's funny because they were talking about maybe an audio of the book. I kept on. It comes from a woman's point of view for me, and I have quite a few of the characters, and there are strong female characters in the book. It's a very theater again. It's an ensemble piece. I have a very diverse cast in it. But if I think of the book right now, as you ask me, I think of it from Maya's point of view. I know it's not. There's so many points of view, but I think she's the heart, and what she struggles with is, I think I connected to her struggles, because she knows she's not perfect. Like, she has these thoughts of what's wrong with the world, and she also knows that she's a part of it. And then sometimes she even says, I'm complicit too. I've done these things too. So I think I was surprised that I've drawn so much to Maya's character, when I love the other, there's action, and I've got all the male forward stuff, and but even all my security officers, they're equal men and women in the security team too. So yeah, I think definitely Maya was this. It was just a surprise and I didn't know that was even going to happen one day. I remember I needed I was trying to think of some conceit to get some information across, and this idea of her writing something in her room one night, and then that grew into this thing. And I could use her to kind of ground us every once. So I'd go off into, it's a rhythmic thing too. You have a lot of action or something like that, and I could give you a quiet moment with Maya reading in her room, give the reader a break, and give you something more to think about and think on. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I also really loved her chapters and her voice. And it actually, that relates to my final question, which is about, like, when you are assembling all of these point of views into the final draft, and thinking about the order in which you present different characters and voices and elements. And what that, I guess, like, what that process is like, but also like it sounds like it's kind of like assembling a playlist a little bit, right? Because some places you are, going for resonance, like chapters that are going to bring things out in each other because they're similar, but then also other times you're going for contrast, whether it's like a slight rest after like an action scene. And I always thought that Maya scenes feel like sort of the pauses, like almost just like that little quiet, like in between symphony pieces, almost like for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, so are those elements that you think about when you are like assembling the final product out of all of the bits?
Yeah, I do definitely. It is rhythmic. There's a Not to sound weird, but there's a music to it. I can, or it's just a rhythm. I think. Like I know I've just had 3 chapters of kind of propulsiveness going. I think we need a break here, and sometimes we need a long break, a short break. I think one of my favorite chapters is 4 words. One say that, and that I specifically put that where because it really, I think it can shock a reader, the brevity of it, and sometimes because there is some language in there. There is some heightened language in the books and some of the thoughts, and I like that. I like to push to as long as I can keep it authentic. I like to push the larger language, and because I love the way it's juxtaposed against really realistic, gritty dialogue, and then a character, if we get into the point of view, or where we can pop into their mind and grow larger with some of the language. And then at the end, I'll be honest with you, some of my I was like chess pieces. I was moving. Well, maybe this one goes here, and this goes here, and that was all Maya's stuff because she could break up, and how did I want to, where did I want the reader to hear that information? Because her journal entries are out of order on purpose too. They don't go day 1, day 2. They start, day 800 or whatever. So I had the freedom kind of to put them where I wanted to. And yeah, that was very on purpose of looking where I thought where the rhythm needed a break here, or we needed something legato, or something short and sharp to push you. It can be a springboard into the next chapter too. That's like that very short chapter, I think, pops you into the next one. Actually, you don't sit with them one a long time, and that's I guess that's subjective, but it's a feeling I have while I'm writing it.
Yeah, and it gives an entire work also like not just the plot arc, but an emotional arc, I think, that's outside of the emotional arc of individual characters, like a movement. I keep using, I'm going to keep leaning into the theater and music terms too, but like like a piece with several movements. Yeah, it was so interesting to, spend time in a world that is not quite where we are, but seems like sometimes like it's not too
Yeah.
far away. And while it's very honest, I think about human nature and the choices that people make in these types of high stakes sort of life or death situations, there are moments of hope and sort of a little bit of like faith, redeemed in the human spirit. So it's it's I'm sorry, I'm really like reaching for the adjective.
It's okay.
It's stark in its reality, but it's also, I think affirming in the voices it presents and the arcs that it presents for some people. So
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was, and it started out even darker because the world is in a dark place, and I'm often in a dark place because of the world, and we looked at that. I changed some things throughout the book, and where we felt it. Okay, that's a little too dark. We need some hope, as long as it's not sugarcoat. Just I didn't want it to be suddenly the bright light at the end of the book. No, there is a possibility of hope, and there's a possibility of hope today. So I wanted that to be complicated too. I didn't want to try my best not to tie things up too neatly, but to leave a little hope out there. So yeah, I'm glad you saw that in the book. Good.
Yeah. And I'm curious too about because you are dealing with topics that are very much in our conversations today, in situations that seem more and more plausible each day we wake up. But in terms of getting creative, like with international dynamics and the geopolitical aspects and climate and all those things, like do you find that sometimes getting creative with the details helps people see the truth in a weird way by obscuring the familiar? I don't think I said that right at all. But sometimes when like the fiction mirrors the reality too much, a person's feelings about the reality impinge on the
Absolutely.
art, like
Yeah, and I think I erred in that way in the beginning of the book. But I mean, the beginning of early drafts I was trying to use actual events around the world. And I first got into a little trouble about what are the ages match this because this war happened 35 years ago. How old was my character? This and that. But even better, it started because it was an actual event. The reader's mind went there, and my son-in-law actually mentioned that to me. And what I started doing was like undetailing. I called it these events. So I made up a thing called the Vienna Basin Wars. I made up a war in Argentina, the water wars, I called them in Argentina. I changed generic desert wars. I didn't say the Gulf War, or Afghanistan, or Iraq. And so I started to, it sounds, I don't have the right word, generalize those things or just completely fictionalize them.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully I could keep the reader in the moment and not them going, oh, wait, that person was in the war. That was, does that make sense? So I'm agreeing with you 100%. And then I tried to go through and either fictionalize or soften the details of events so they wouldn't, hook you to some place that I didn't want you to go at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's great that you picked up on that. I think it still resonates, in a more productive way inside the story.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, because as I was writing it, the world was changing too. And I believe this now, some other writers said it, but like, as you're writing, if you're paying attention, if you're writing about something that has something to do with the world, I'm saying, if it's not that the world, different images come to you, different vocabulary comes to you, different verbs and adjectives come to you because the world around you is changing. So even if I'm not trying to specifically write about that event that happened 3 days ago, but that language is in your imagination somewhere. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it like trusts the reader, I think, too, because you are putting it there for them to make the connection, but not make, connecting
Mm-hmm.
the bits for them, and so I think it allows for a more active reading process too, I think.
Yeah, and they make the connection or they don't. And
Yes.
and every person, depending who they are, how their age, their life experience, their race, their sex, they will hear what they hear.
Mm-hmm.
So I try and make it as accessible as I can for them to take it where they want it.
This has been absolutely lovely. It's been so interesting to see inside your process for this book. I know that you are deep in promoting this one, and that's, very time consuming, but are there books on your horizon? Are you writing now or planning to write anytime soon?
Yeah, well, I started about 6 months ago. So I've been working on another book now, which shall remain titleless at this time. Yes, I roughly consider myself a third of the way through it right now. And it's in the same genre, but it's not a continuation of the story or anything like that. But by genre means something, a large canvas, something. And as we say, don't want to become the apocalyptic writer or something like that. But there's a lot going on in the world, and those are the things that keep me up at night or get my imagination going to write about. So I'm not. And again, I said, if I'm writing about something that's in the world, it doesn't feel authentic not to incorporate some of that stuff. And so, like, what world are you living in?
Yes.
If you were to read this, or at least the way I'm approaching it. So, I'm investing and probably have something to do with AI and the cost. What I feel is the cost. What is the loss? And again, complicated. What the benefits are amazing, and at what cost? At what price? Ease is one of the thoughts that come in my mind. This ease and betterment and quicker and faster. But what is the cost? What are we losing? And we don't know. We're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So, but like this book, like Sanctuary, as you said, the many characters, what I wanted to give was a lot of different points of view, because in my head, I have all kinds of different points of view. I don't know what to believe. I'm lost. Help me. I want hope. So I try to put those in and I tried very hard not to have too many people agreeing with each other. I found that in the beginning. It's okay. All right. Somebody's got to think this is not agree with this at all. So I would actually go back and give somebody points of view just to argue that point. So, but anyway, I went off a little bit, but I just, another large canvas story. And hopefully I don't know how many characters this time. It was a lot last time.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to that. It was great to read this one and to talk about it with you and your process and your background. Thank you so much for taking the time to introduce your book to our listeners and our patrons here in Syosset. I'm very excited to share this book with them when it finally comes out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And hi to Long Island. I miss the ocean. I told you, I miss pizza, bagels, in the ocean.
Yes.
And, but so hopefully, I'm trying to get out to the island on a bookstore or two. So my sister lives out there still. So if I can get out there, maybe I'll run up to Syosset and say hi to you.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Well, listeners, thank you as well for joining us. Please pick up Sanctuary. By the time that you hear this, it will be out in the world. So please head to your favorite bookstore or library or website, wherever you like to go for books. All right. It is time to close this chapter, everybody. We'll see you next time.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.